All right, in this video, we're going to talk about best practices for watching videos. I've gotten many requests from people asking for advice on how to get the students to watch the videos in TestOut. Of course, with college level classes, usually this wasn't a huge problem because they were paying for the class and some were adults, and so you would assign work and hopefully they do it. And if they didn't, well, they're paying for the class. But at the high school level, it's a much different environment, and so these kids are full of all kinds of things that are happening. Some are in sports, some are in other extracurricular activities. So, their time is always all over the place, and watching the videos and other things about with test out can be challenging. So, I'm going to talk about some things that worked for me and some things that didn't work for me, and hopefully you'll get some information out of this that you find usable. Okay, so here we go. Let's talk about best practices watching videos. Okay, so we're going to talk about three different ways, approaches, right? The in-person delivery, where everybody's back in the classroom and we're all there. Online delivery, so like what's happening now with the situation we're in, but this situation may not go away in different aspects. I think online delivery is here to stay in many ways. I think it's an interesting way to deliver classes, and I think it's if you do it right, it can be just as good as being in class. Doing it wrong can be real bad. So, it depends on how you deliver and your approach. And then a combination of both. Some kids may be at home and some will be in class with you. So we'll cover those three different ways of approaching it. I've done all three, so hopefully there'll be some insight for that. Okay. Um, so here's the problem, right? So I'm going to go through these problems, and I'm sure you can say, "Yep, I've seen those problems," right? So so here we go. Students won't watch the videos, just straight out won't watch them, right? You assign them and that's not what they want to do, or they don't have time, or they feel they don't have time, so they don't watch the videos, right? Students won't watch the entire video, so that's another problem, right? They'll watch, maybe the video is 8 or 9 or 10 minutes, and they only watch 3 or 4 minutes, right? So again, a problem that I've seen in my classroom. The students turn on the video and leave to do something else. This is the one that really bothers me, right? Because if you're going to turn it on, might as well watch it, but they turn it on so that they record it, they record the fact that they've watched it, and that way when you do you look at the stats of who was watching the video, because TestOut has all these wonderful tools to be able to watch, the students, which track them. But when you go and it looks like they watched the whole video, but they're not doing well on the test, so obviously they're not watching the full videos. They're putting them on and they are leaving or doing something else, right? Another thing that happens is the students will get distracted during the videos, right? So again, TestOut's really good about keeping the videos very specific, short and full of meat and potatoes, not much fluff. But even a small distraction away, especially when it's that kind of video where it's short and the information is very specific, and a couple of seconds of distraction, you've missed kind of a major thing, right? Sometimes, people always talk about you don't want too long a video, but I also feel like you don't want too short a video. If you pack it full of a lot of information and they get distracted for a second, they've missed quite a bit. It's a real double-edged sword. So anyway, but that distraction, they miss a piece, but they don't go back and watch it again, right? So that's things. That's one another thing about watching the videos. And some videos use terminology that I explain. So that's another thing, right? They'll watch the video and they're watching it just to get through it, and maybe the video will have content that is maybe can be maybe the student doesn't understand it, but they don't take the time to investigate it or to go on and go, well, I don't understand that, let me go find out why. They just kind of just let it go by. So this is another problem, right? So how do you get around something like that? Okay, so here's some solutions that I've tried. Okay, and again, I have tried them all. I mean, I have again, I was a high school teacher for 12 years and loved every minute of it. But here's some of the things that I tried. Right, so I assigned the students to watch them on their own in class. So I would say, okay, everybody, go watch video this, and this, or these videos, and I would have the day's agenda on the board, and they would know they were going to watch these videos during the time period. And so, I would assign them to go out and watch them on their own. They had headphones. I used to have every desk station had headphones, so they could listen through headphones. And so, that's one way I would do it. I would also assign students to watch videos at home on their own. So I would assign work for them to watch them at home. And so, that was one way I would also approach it. I would also do small groups, right? So I would say, hey, break them into 2 or 3 students each, and assign them in a group to watch the videos together. Um, that was not a good idea because one student would watch, the other two would just kind of horse around. Sometimes they would work together, but it was just it was not always very consistent. So one student would just pick on the other students and distract them, right? Assign students to watch them on their own in class or at home, but I gave them a note sheet to fill out and turn in. So this is an approach I took one year, that I would create very specific note sheets, and these note sheets were so specific that I knew they would have to watch the entire video to fill out that note sheet. So I would create these note sheets, and I would give them to the students, and they would watch the video, and they would have to fill in. It was mostly fill in the blank, or fill in certain sentences. So it wasn't one of those things where it was multiple choice. It was they would gonna have to write something out, or I would ask a question, and the only way to answer it was watch the video. So I like that approach. If you're teaching multiple subjects, like I used to teach lots of different classes. I would teach like A plus, Network plus type classes, security, Linux, Cisco certification classes. When you're doing that many classes, it's really hard to create that many note sheets. I mean, it's a lot of work. That's why I would do them in the summer. I would do all my note sheets in the summer for every single one of my classes for the entire year. And so I mean, I don't know how many people are that dedicated to do that, but that's what I did. So I would have them prepared. In my opinion, everything's about preparation, right? So, so that helped actually. That did help because they had to turn them in, right? But of course, they would copy off each other. So the kids were always finding a way to get around things, of course, and that's okay. They're just kids, right? Um, and then I would track them, right? And another thing I would do is I would track them using TestOut's tracking utility so I can see how long they were on the video. And if I didn't see them finishing up the videos, I would get after the students. Hey, you're not watching the full video. Try to, watch the whole video. And so that was another way that I would try to get on them, just kind of stay on them, you know, and those were some things that I tried, right? I thought the note sheet worked pretty well. Okay. Okay, so what did I feel worked the best? So again, 12 years, I used TestOut for almost those entire years. So I've been using TestOut for a long time. And so what I found worked the best for me, now again, this is me, my experience, was to watch the videos together as a group. So I was even very early on when I first started teaching, I knew I wanted some way to project information on the screen, especially when I was doing like commands and doing showing labs. So even though my school didn't have projectors, I went ahead and I used I actually had my own projector that I brought into the school, so I could project on a screen that I would set up a screen on the side of the classroom in the early days, and then later all the schools got equipped with projectors and screens, and I bought a board like this so I could write on the screen very early. I was one of the first teachers that had some type of device that I could write on the screen and put notes and highlight, because I wanted to project everything on the screen so the students could follow along. And I find, especially with the kids that have that attention deficit, they need something to be changing all the time, right? Snapping my fingers, always trying to get their attention, because it's a battle to keep them focused. And I have that same problem. I have I have ADD when I was a kid, and so for me, keeping on task was always a challenge. But I found those teachers that were very animated and were focused, were able to focus us very quickly and make changes very quickly. I found that they were the ones that I could keep up with the best. So that's just my advice. Take it or leave it, right? So anyway, so I would put the videos on the screen, right? And I would have the video playing. Another thing that this really helped me with is because I go off on tangents. Like you can see right now, I'm going off on tangents all the time, right? Because it's just one of I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's something that I do. And what I would find in my early days of teaching, before I was using TestOut, which was like maybe only 1 or 2 years, um, I would be inconsistent in my delivery because I would have my lectures set, but if I taught the same subject for 3 periods, the first period would get a fairly good delivery, and then the second period got a better one, and then by the third time I delivered it, I was pretty gone, I was pretty good. So I found that that if I were to use the videos, right, and put them on the screen and use them as kind of like a second teacher, right? And I would, we were a co-teacher. And that way, what that did for me, it did two things. One, it made my delivery very consistent, right? And and then I can also use the note sheet still, the note sheets in my lectures with the co-teacher, and so that was kind of cool. Now later on, I had to abandon the note sheets because I couldn't just keep up with it. It was a lot of paper to print every day too. It was a lot of paper. So what I did is I had the students take notes, and I would kind of guide them to what to write down during the lectures, right? So I would have them we would watch the videos on the screen, right? And I would stop the videos every once in a while, and I would explain something, especially, and I would watch them early. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't watching them cold. I'd watch them in the evenings before or in the mornings before I taught class, making a few notes to myself to go, okay, I'm gonna make sure I display that, make sure I have some pictures, right, that I want on my screen so that I can show them something, so I can add more. Again, always thinking about those students that need that redirection all the time. They need things to be moving because that keeps them focused. So that's, again, my opinion, right? So that helped me prepare all this beforehand. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I use OneNote for these videos, and I like OneNote because it's really easy to go in and out of different applications. Again, the writing tools are better. Like if this was a PowerPoint, I wouldn't have the extensive writing tools I have with OneNote, so I can go and change all my different sizes of pens and highlighters. I can, and things like that. So I just like using OneNote. It makes it easy. It's easy to port PowerPoints into OneNote. Another thing what's cool about it is you can scroll and you have more space down here, right? So you can keep on going. The more you write, right, you're going to get more and more screen. And I like that about OneNote because it allows me to do that. Again, a personal preference. So if I'm doing lectures, I use OneNote quite a bit, and it keeps me really able to do all kinds of cool stuff, and I can paste in all kinds of different things, pictures and images and graphs and stuff inside this one little area, and then I can have multiple pages on top going, very quickly between subjects. Again, it's just my preference. Okay, so so I would have them have their note sheets prepared, or else they would have their own notes, but I would tell them what to write, right? And then later I would reassign these videos so they could watch them during test prep days. So again, they're going to watch them again later. Okay, so for online delivery with Zoom, I still used the same method, even when I was doing online delivery. So I would share I would be in Zoom. We use Zoom, and if I wanted to show a video, I would just make sure that the audio was being sent through the Zoom connection, right? So they could still hear, and I would do the exact same thing, right? I would stop and make comments on the video, right? I'm going to demonstrate here in a minute, right? I would have the students take notes, and I would tell them what to write. I would say, listen, write this down. You have to write this down, right? Stopping the video, right? And then another thing what was cool about using recording the session is I would be able to send it. So I would record the Zoom meeting, whatever, and all of them do it, no matter what you're using. They all allow you to record the meeting, and then I would send those to the students and the next day once they were prepared, right? So I don't know if your school district lets you do that, but I was doing this at a college level course, and I was able to send them. So that's kind of a cool thing. So they get to see it again with me instructing, showing the video, and even the questions that were being asked during that. Because the students were asking me questions, and they stopped the video. I could rewind it. I go, let's hear them. Let's say that again. Let's hear them say that again. So it's a very cool way of delivering that way, in my opinion. And I kind of liked it better with the video delivery in a lot of ways. It's very focused. I could see the students. Of course, it was mandatory they had their cameras on. I know many people having problems with cameras off. We had problems with it when we first started using Zoom. People were turning off their cameras. I had to make it mandatory that they had their camera on, and that's easier said than done at a high school level. I know that totally. So I feel for y'all. Another thing is a hybrid. I have done hybrids where students are in the classroom and we're also having some zooming in, right? And what I would do is I would just make sure that the screen that I was sharing was the one that had the video. And of course, I'm always on the screen because that's the way Zoom does it, right? Even if you share a screen, you're always on the screen, right? So they can see me and they can see the video being presented. So again, it's very cool. And then the students that were in the classroom are able to see it. Now, another thing that's really important, I think, is mobility. Okay, so I wanted to show you all this. This is a very inexpensive mobile keyboard. It's a USB keyboard. It's got a built-in mouse. It's got a little built-in mouse and the selectors here. You can scroll. And since I was showing the video on the big screen, I like to be very mobile, and so I would move around the room. I was very rarely at the front of the room during these my lectures. I like to move around the room, and this gave me the ability to control the video, the volume. I would be able to stop it, rewind it, right? And I usually would just sit on a kid's desk that I knew kind of wanted him to know that I was, I wanted him to be awake during this period, And I would sit on his desk, and and I'd be showing the video, talking, and I'd move around from the back. And I used to like to lecture from the back of the room, having the video in the front of the room. That way, again, especially it made it real dramatic. I'm all about drama sometimes, and if the student, if the person says something on the screen, and I wanted to really elaborate, I would quickly, like from the back of them, run to the front. So the kids were like, "Wow, Mr. C's really, did you hear what he said? Did you hear that? Do I agree with that? Yeah, I agree." I would always comment, and then this little mobile keyboard allowed me to be very agile, right, and stop things. Now, another thing, though, be careful because you can't. Again, I can go off on tangents, and it would be that one 5-minute video would be a 20-minute lecture, which is not a bad thing, especially if it's something that's very, the content is super important, especially for the test. But again, try to keep your time. I used to assign a student. I'm not joking. I used to assign a student in my class, and usually one of my good trusted kids. You always have those trusted kids, and they would be my rant monitor, right? I tell them, hey, I was like, I would say, Jose, tell me if I start going off on a tangent. You tell me, Mr. C, you're going too long, and I would have them do that for me, and they would do it for me. Again, picking a really good student to do that, and you have them. Everybody has those really great students that they can just rely on in those ways. And I would say, hey, Mijo, tell them if I'm going to go off on a tangent, you make sure you tell me, and they would every time. All right. So again, the hybrid also works. If your student's in class and you have someone somewhere online, put it on the screen, share that screen with the videos, the students, and of course, you can't really walk around the room with the video Zoom meetings. I should remind that, right? It's true, but you have some mobility. You can just kind of be within screen. So I know it's difficult. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just do a quick demo of how I would watch the video and how I would approach it. So here we go. So I have a video right here ready to go. A test out video. I just picked it randomly, by the way. It's not a video that I picked for any purpose. It's just a networking adapter video. I happen to like this video because it's got some good content. So here we go. I tell the students, okay, everybody, here we go. Let's start the video. So I would prepare them for it, and I would start the video. Right, here we go. Make it full screen.
When computers send data across a network, they need to convert it.
Okay, so another thing is always leave your mouse on the little controller, the little, because you can't. One thing about these videos, you can't use your space bar to start and stop, which is kind of a drag. I used to, with YouTube videos, you can use your space bar and to stop and start, but with these, there's a little different approach. So just make sure your mouse is kind of just hanging out there. That way you can quickly stop the video and start the video. So here we go. So she's delivering the class.
Into a signal that can be transmitted on the network media.
Okay, did you hear that word media? Right? That's a fancy word of saying wire, right? Whether it's going to be copper wire, whether it's going to be fiber optic or radio waves. So that word media means wire.
A network adapter makes this possible. A network adapter, also called a network interface card or NIC, is a computer hardware component that...
Okay, so she's used the word NIC, and that's the word you're going to hear in the field mostly, the word NIC. Very few people say network adapter. They'll say, what kind of NIC are you using, right? Network interface card. Now remember, the NIC is an umbrella term because the network is like the word car, right? The word NIC doesn't give any specifics to what type of infrastructure you're using, right? So it's kind of like an opinion of the word car, right? Everyone has a car, but what kind of car are you driving is different, right? Same thing with the word NIC, right? It's an umbrella term, and we don't know what kind of network adapter you're actually using. It's just the word NIC isn't very specific. So if you ask me what kind of NIC are you using, I say, well, I'm using an Ethernet NIC, I'm using a SONET NIC, or maybe in old days a token ring NIC. So again, that term. So here we go.
That transmits and receives data over a network. Network adapters are architecture specific. For example, to connect a computer to a wired Ethernet network, you need an Ethernet network adapter that uses an RJ45 connection.
Okay, so again, I would have stopped there and say, see what she said about that? RJ45, we're using copper. So in other words, that's what I would have done during the video is I would stop, elaborate a little bit, and then keep going. right? And what that does is the redirection, right? The students look at me and then they look at the video. They look at me, they look at the video, and I'm moving around to keep them interested, always snapping my fingers, always making sure that I do some type of action that draws them, I snapping your fingers is a really great way to draw people's attention back. I do it all the time, even with adults, right? Well, that's enough. I think I get the gist of it, right? So that is what I would do. I would stop the video. Another thing I would have is, again, I would always have my pictures up here. I could draw on my screen. I would have the video playing. Sometimes I would go back and forth. I go, okay, she's talking about a network. This is a network interface card here. This is the RJ45. This is your transceiver. This is your bus controller chip. This would be connected. And this is what I'm doing to help with these videos, right? Bringing the video a little bit more alive, and then going back to it, when I need to, or maybe just keep on going and doing this another time. Okay. So anyway, so that's how I approach videos. Again, I know it's very difficult, especially high school level, to get the kids to watch the videos and to get something out of the videos, right? And I think that is my favorite approach, to use the video another teacher in the room, a co-teacher, and still assigning work at home. I mean, you have to do that. There's so much content delivery you have to assign at home. So it's really just how you're going to manage it, right? You're going to show all the videos in class, which I did. I showed all the videos in class, and I would elaborate on each video. And then once we get to test prep, which is, again, just always break the year into two parts: the initial delivery and then the prepping for the test. Then during the practice test, the students have to watch the videos to go and review on their own, because everyone's in different levels of testing. So it becomes a challenge at that point to make sure everybody's on task. So again, I've been there, I understand it. But hopefully this helps you in some way to maybe open up new ideas. And if you have your own personal ideas, please email us at TestOut and tell us some really cool ideas you have for this, and we would appreciate it. Anyway, all right, everybody. So good luck.